Hello, my friends, boys and girls. It is your boy Uzumaki Clan here at last, and today we will be reviewing It Chapter 2. Finally, at long last, I finally get to review this film. I know it's been a while. But, there's been a lot of stuff that's been going on as of lately that's been kind of hard for me to be making these sorts of videos, but that's besides the point. Let's get into it. Let's get into It Chapter 2. Now, going off topic, let me get to the question that I know you guys are probably going to ask me. What are my thoughts on the film? Do I think it was a great adaptation? Did I like the pacing? And how were the actors? And the story overall? Well, we'll get into that right away, starting with my thoughts on the adaptation as a whole. Now, when it comes to this film, I honestly think throughout most of the Stephen King films that I have seen that have come out in recent years, this, in my opinion, is definitely the best adaptation I have seen as of lately. I put that over the freaking Pet Sematary remake and, of course, It Chapter 1. Now, my reasonings for that has to do, of course, with the story progression when it comes to the characters. Now, here's how I feel about It Chapter 1 when it comes to character interactions. In the first film, the only characters I think that we really got to explore within the first film were Beverly, Bill, and Richie. Those were the only three in the first film who really got the spotlight, while everyone else were pretty much side characters. And I think in this film, we got a lot more in-depth with all 7 characters. Every single one of them, including Stan. Now, I know that I haven't gotten to the summary yet. So, basically in this film, this takes place 27 years, almost 30 years after the events of It Chapter 1, where they thought they had defeated It, and at the end of the movie, they made a pledge that if It were to return, they would come back to defeat it once and for all. And so what ends up happening is that there have been a lot of murders that have been going on within the town of Derry. And Mike, the main character in this film, calls up all of the former Losers Club members, calls them up as they are adults to return and to try to defeat it once and for all. So that's basically the main summary within this movie. Now, when it comes to the acting, this film, I think the entire cast nailed it. Every single one of them. Bill Skarsgård, I think, gave it his all in this film. I think his performance as Pennywise was phenomenal in this movie. A lot more than I felt like in It Chapter 1. In It Chapter 1, I felt as if Bill was kind of struggling being in this typical kind of role. But in this film, he seemed more comfortable. He seemed more familiar on what he is supposed to do when it comes to portraying this type of character. And I think he did a sensational job. The entire cast in general did a sensational job. This movie stars Jessica Chastain as Beverly, James McAvoy as Bill Hader, who was the MVP in this movie, as Richie, Isaiah Mustafa, I think that's his name, as Mike, James Ranson as Eddie, and Andy Bean as Stan, who did phenomenal jobs. I think that they did great in this movie. Now, one of the most unpopular opinions on why a lot of people dislike the film has to do with the pacing, and I had absolutely no problem with the pacing. Mainly the people have a problem with this film is because the film is very, very, very long. And I think that this was the appropriate approach of it almost being 3 hours. Because when it comes to a story like It, which is a 1,000-page book, the thing's freaking huge. It's as big as a Bible. Look at all that. They were able to adapt 3 hours of film to fill in around here. And I think they absolutely did. They absolutely handled it correctly. I very well appreciate them actually giving the characters time to progress, because that was my problem, like I said, with It Chapter 1. We only got to see a little majority of the Losers Club, but, in depth with their characters. In this film, I think it was handled quite well. And even Stephen King was able to make a cameo within this movie, and I thought that was great. One thing that I noticed while I was watching the film is that a lot of people in the movie brought up as saying, when it came to Bill's novels, that was, of course, I didn't like the ending, which was pretty ironic to put in the second half of It, because I remember reading it for the first time when I was in high school, and I really disliked the ending. I think the turtle was kind of a cop-out, and so did a lot of people. But then this film really gave you a bit of